Hello YouTubers and welcome back to Go Figure Customs YouTube channel. I've gotten some feedback recently that tells me that people are enjoying and finding the tutorials very useful. So I'm going to try and keep up those tutorials. Anytime I figure out a new trick or remember something that I do maybe infrequently that might be helpful to you, I'm gonna throw one of these up. I do like the catchy name of 2-minute tips, tricks, and tutorials. This is definitely gonna be more than 2 minutes, but I still like the catchy name, so we're gonna go with that. I shot this one already, but I didn't like how it came out, so I'm gonna this is a reshoot, and I think it's gonna be kind of better because I'm gonna get a chance to go through the whole process, which will be very helpful. And as you've already seen on the title, this is about using rare earth magnets, which I've talked about previously. There was a customizer, and I cannot remember his name, and I've looked for it, his customs, and I can't find his stuff anymore. I don't think he's customizing anymore that I've seen use rare earth magnets. That was a long time ago. I mean, we're talking 15 years ago at least. And I thought that was, back then I thought that was way above my skill level. But it's not. It's not above anybody's skill level. If you have access to an Amazon account, a Dremel, and super glue, it's not above your skill level. What I'm going to do today is throw in another part of that, and that sculpting material, your choice of like AVS or AVS epoxy sculpt or green stuff, or what I'm using now is called Procreate, which I really like, which is going to help make that look fantastic. This is above no one's skill level. It just might need a bump to get you pushed in the right way, and that's what we're here for. So what we're going to do today is you're going to get a sneak peek of a couple projects I'm working on. First off, here is Salvo, and this is already done. This is what we're going to be going for. Didn't quite come out as nice as I wanted on the back, but that's because I didn't leave it alone after I had done the sculpting stuff. So what I did was I dremeled a hole in his back, I put a rare earth magnet in, and I sculpted over it and painted it and let it dry. And now you can see that there is actually a magnet in there. So what we're gonna do today, I'm gonna try this. I don't know how well it's gonna work. We're gonna try like a slow or a time-lapse video that I'm gonna throw in here of me doing some of the longer stuff. When I did it the first time, I just paused the video, but I figured, let's try the time-lapse stuff and see how it works. I should put it to like yakety sax to make it sound interesting at least, but again, above my skill level. So what we're going to do today is look for the parts that I was working on. Man, so, yeah. Tip number one, if you're gonna do a video, make sure you get all your shit ready to go. All right, so here's the figure that I'm gonna work on. That is a very Frankensteined Marauder Task Force figure with the arms swapped out. So here's a quick trick tutorial for you. Do you want to swap out the arms on a Marauder Task Force figure but don't know how to do that? Heat it up with a blow dryer. Hot water works too, but I like a blow dryer. And then get yourself a pair of vice grips like this. They are like 12 bucks on Amazon. Once it's very, very heated up very thoroughly, stick it in there, and it's reverse, so pops right open. Yeah, you got to glue it back together, but that's what's nice about the Marauder Task Force stuff, is it goes right back together pretty easily. And I've done that on this. Not much torso damage. The articulation is still there. So there you go. That's your bonus tip trick tutorial on how to swap out arms on a Marauder Task Force figure. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to put a magnet in this, I'm going to put a magnet in this, and this is going to be the first one of 4 Ghostbusters customs that I'm going to do. I've already got the heads mostly painted. I just need to do the eyes on Egon, and I need to touch up Winston's mustache. I can't seem to get that one to look nice, and I can't paint eyebrows for shit, as I've found out recently. So what we're going to do first is we need to put a hole in the back of this figure to hold the first magnet. The tricks and tips and tutorials and pitfalls on this is you need to make the hole big enough for the magnet, obviously, and when you're dremeling in, you need to be careful, especially on these thinner bucks. It wasn't such a big deal on the this is a retaliation roadblock figure, so you can see there's the torso difference is significantly, the roadblock is significantly bigger than the Marauder Task Force figure. So the first trick in pitfall here is when you're dremeling into the torso, you need to make sure that you don't hit the stems on the arms. The next trick and pitfall here also is once you get a hole big enough, once it's time to put in that magnet, I'm just going to glue it in place. So when you start gluing that magnet in place, you need to make sure that you don't glue the stems on the arms in place. And I will hit that topic again. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to switch it over to time lapse, and we'll see if that works. I'm going to Dremel a hole big enough for the magnet. So let's see how this works. All right, so I thought I was recording and I wasn't, so that's annoying. So, God damn it. Son of a bitch. So what I did was I dremeled a hole big enough to put the magnet in there, and then put the magnet in there and then went around the edges and covered the top of it with super glue, hit it with super glue accelerator so it glued in place. The pitfall to avoid is getting glue in those joints, because if I'd had done this properly, you could have seen into the torso and you can see the arm stems through the hole, because it's a fairly big hole. So that glue, you want to make sure you don't get that glue on those arm stems when you glue that magnet in place. And I did get glue on the right arm, but that's not a big issue as long as you keep that joint moving until the glue dries, which I did. So you can see, even though I got glue in the joint, I still have the articulation of that right arm because I kept the joint moving until that glue dried. And I've actually talked about this in a previous video on how to fix loose joints on figures like this. Is you put a drop of super glue in there and you keep that joint moving until it's dried, and it will actually fix your loose joint problem. So unfortunately, I was an idiot. I thought I pushed record and didn't, but that's what we're going for. The other thing I mentioned that didn't get recorded was that it doesn't matter which way the magnet goes in your figure. It does matter which way the magnet goes in your accessory. Keep in mind, magnets are polarized, so one side's positive, one side's negative. So it doesn't matter necessarily which one you get into your figure, but it will matter which one you get into your accessory. And I didn't pull out a second one, because I'm going to put one of these into the Proton pack, and just like Salvo, I have the his vintage missile launcher on order from eBay, so I'm going to Dremel a hole in that and do just the exact same thing, but I'll have to make sure which end is up. So just drop your magnet on there, and then you know which end is which. And then what I do is I will set this magnet aside somewhere, and I will set it with the side that goes towards the figure. I will set that side up, and I won't touch that magnet again until I'm actually ready to glue it into the proton pack. That way I know the bottom, the part that's sitting on my table here, I know that part goes into the magnet, or I'm sorry, into the proton pack, or into the accessory of whatever you want to do this to. So now the next part that we're going to do, we're going to try another time-lapse thing, is I'm going to, I mean, it's not unsightly. I mean, it's, well, kind of unsightly. Because I did one to a Storm Shadow. This is a kind of a figure that I've been working on and off on. I don't know what I want to do with it. I love the sculpt, but I love the like V1 look too, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this just yet, but I put a magnet in him anyway. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do with him, but it gets kind of hidden by his belt. So now that I've kind of gotten better at putting these in, now I'm to the point where I'm like, I don't like that big old magnet sticking out in his back. So we're going to fix that with some sculpting stuff. Let me get this guy on a figure stand first. Let me try and get this guy on a figure stand. And I Frankensteined his lower legs. I cut off his the lower legs of a Cobra Trooper and cut off his lower legs of the Marauder Task Force figure, and I kind of Dremeled them down so they're both flat, and then I glued them together. That looks horrible right now. It looks absolutely horrible. What I'm going to do while I have extra sculpting stuff, I'm not going to do it during the video, is I'm going to fill in little spots and make the folds of the clothes look a little better. And then when I prime it and paint it, it's not really going to be noticeable. At least it shouldn't be. That's my hope anyway. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to a time lapse of me sculpting the stuff. Sculpting stuff to try and hide that magnet a little better. All right, so yes, I put on my cheesy ass loops because my eyesight's not as good as it used to be, and put a patch over the back of the magnet. What I did was take a little bit of sculpting stuff, make a little tube of it, because the top was sticking out, excuse me, worse than the lower. So I put a ring, like a half ring around the top, and then smoothed that out, and then took another piece, flattened it out to like a pizza, put that on top, and then smoothed that in, and then blended it all together, blending it into the figure itself at the edges, so it will be harder to tell that there's sculpting stuff on there once it's dry. You can tell now, it's fairly obvious, but once it's dry, and once I primer and once I paint it, you'll get something like this. Yeah, it's almost impossible to completely hide it. And I think it would have been a little better if I'd sunk the magnet a little deeper in this figure, but it's still possible to get a kind of a better aesthetic with this. So the next tip and trick on this is leave this sculpting stuff alone until it's completely cured before you start dicking with it again. Don't go messing around with the accessory. You know, we're going to put a magnet in this, and we'll do it as part of this video too. But don't go around seeing how well your handiwork is, because if you take this magnet and put it to this, the magnets are so strong it's going to flatten out your sculpting stuff, and it's going to completely negate all of your sculpting, and you're going to have this big ring on the back because these magnets are really strong. So leave it alone. Don't start working on the figure, because I'm like, I didn't have anything else to work on, so I really wanted to work on him. And if you look real close on the kind of left side, it's pretty well hidden, but it's got fingerprints in the sculpting stuff. I was able to kind of sand that down afterwards, but leave it alone. Let it dry. Otherwise, you're going to get sculpting stuff in there, or you're going to get a nice ring from your magnet when you try and put it together. So that is the tip and trick there, is to get some sculpting stuff on top of your magnet to hide it a little better. And you'll get something like that. And I think that works really nice. Now let's put the magnet in the backpack. Unfortunately, this is a really thin piece. This is from the Ghostbusters Afterlife figures. It's just a little bigger than I would like, but all in all, it's not too bad. It's maybe a couple millimeters bigger than I would like it to be, but it's, for scale wise, I think it's not too bad. And when I bought them, I'm like, I'm gonna have to sculpt some stuff on that or glue some greebles to it, because it's not gonna look like the Proton Pack did in the movie. I sat down with the HasLab photos of the Proton Pack that they have out, that the HasLab project's going right now, and they nailed the sculpt on this thing. It's actually really a fantastic sculpt. I'm really impressed. I'm just going to primer and paint this thing, and it's a really nice sculpt. I'm not going to have to do much to it. I want to add some of like the rainbow wires that aren't on there. But as far as the sculpt goes, this is a fantastic sculpt from the Afterlife figures. And you can get those really cheap now, especially any of the less popular characters. I think I bought like 4 podcasts, because I mean, who really how many podcasts do you really want? And I think I got them for like $10 off of Amazon, which is, for an accessory, I'm willing to pay $10 for a decently sculpted accessory. So what I'm going to do, and I said leave the figure alone, I need to approximate where I know where this magnet is. I need to approximate where I want to put the other one. So I want to see just about how far down I want to put this magnet, because I know where I want it to sit. Unfortunately, it's a really shallow spot, but I want to put it just above where I dremeled the stem down. So let's go back to time lapse. We're gonna put the magnet in this now. Okay, I didn't do much more than Dremel an indentation into this. Can we see it on the video? Yeah, right there. I took out a second magnet so I don't get the one magnet that I know which way I want it sitting to fit it. You can see that's how it's going to sit in the hole. And I think that'll work really well. But I don't want to accidentally glue the wrong side in, so I'm not touching the magnet that I have set aside when I check to make sure the hole that I've dremeled is the right size. And now that it is, I'm going to fill the hole with super glue, or just put a little layer of super glue in there. And I know the back of this magnet, the part of the magnet that was sitting on the table, is the part that needs to go into the backpack. Got that magnet in there how I want it, pretty much. Not quite flush. There we go. I put a ring of super glue around it. You know, and that's what's really nice about these rare earth magnets is how strong they are, because I'm going to put a layer of super glue over the magnet too. And even with the super glue over the magnet and the sculpting stuff over the magnet in the back, it will not affect how well it works. Quick spray. I'm not going to see how well this fits on my figure because the sculpting stuff is still soft. I am going to stick it onto my salvo. Well, let's make sure the super glue accelerator is dry first. I don't really want to fuck up the paint job on salvo because he's ready to go. And there you go. And that's how that works. And it's magnetized and it comes right off. So there is sculpting stuff over that. There's super glue over this. And it still works just fine. Of course, it doesn't sit in there and on there as well as a peg would, but this is a real easy fix that's kind of cool at the same time. And it is not above anybody's skill level to Dremel out a hole in your backpack, in your action figure, or your accessory, in your action figure, put a rare earth magnet in each one, glue it in place, and put some sculpting stuff over the back of either your figure or like when I get the missile launcher for salvo, I'm going to sculpt over that and sand it down so the magnet's hidden in that. And you have hidden magnets in your backpack and your figure that work really well, and there's no figure stem, there's no backpack stem. So, you know, I mean, if this had been a vintage figure and had the big old backpack stem hole, and I was using a new sculpt backpack that had the really, or a Marauder Task Force backpack, it had the really thin stem, I just put a magnet in each one and it works. Or, you know, you're using maybe an action figure that doesn't have a hole for backpack. Like, I don't think I'm not sure that like the Joy Toy figures have backpack holes. I'm not positive on that actually, but we'll say for instance that it doesn't. Or here, like this is a Capcom Marvel Universe figure. It doesn't have a backpack in it. I've considered using this buck for Quick Kick. I'm convinced it's a good idea. I'm just not convinced on how I'm going to do it yet. But Quick Kick had a backpack, and I would want him to be able to have a backpack. And if I don't Dremel a hole in his back, I can, for a stem, maybe because I'll use a vintage Quick Kick backpack, and it'll have a big old peg on it. I can fix that by putting a magnet in each one of these and putting some sculpting stuff on it. So it's a good way to get any backpack to fit on any figure and have it do it, and have it work kind of covertly, I guess is the way to put that. That's about all I got for you. The tips, tricks, and tutorials there for you today. Just be careful Dremel in your hole so you don't Dremel through the arm stems. Be careful gluing your magnet in place so you don't get glue in the arm stems themselves, in the joints themselves. If you do get glue in the joint, don't worry about it. Keep that arm moving, because like I said, I did get glue in this joint, but I kept that arm moving until the glue dried, and I still have the full range of articulation. And then use your sculpting medium of your choice to cover your backpack or cover your magnet. And then when you're done, set it aside, leave it alone until it is completely dry. And then make sure the second magnet that you put in your accessory is the right way. So because remember they're polarized, positive one side, negative the other. So you want the magnets to work. So make sure you have the right side up in your accessory. And I think that's about all I got. So, as always, thank you for watching. Please do that fun social media stuff. Like, share, subscribe, comment below. I do get back to questions as frequently as I can. And again, as always, thanks for watching.